Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 8 are going to present today's topic that is language change. First, let me introduce our group consists of me, Nadya Ismah Khairunnisa, and two my friends, Tasya Lavinska Agustin and Nadya La Viola. For the first part, variation and change will be presented by me. So let's check the first one. What is language variation? Variation refers to the regional, social, or contextual differences in the ways that a particular language is used. Within a monolingual community such as a region or city, it often seems that everyone uses the same language, but if we take a look closely, we can identify the differences of vocabulary and pronunciation between areas. The way language is changed due to the factor like age, group, situation, region, or education is called linguistic variation. Language carries in three major, which are interestingly interrelated over time in physical space and socially. Language change, variation over time, has its origin in spatial and social variation. The possibility of linguistic change exists as soon as a new form develops and begins to be used alongside an existing form. If the new form spreads, the change is in progress. A sound change occurs when one sound is replaced in people's speech by another over a period of time, or when a sound disappears. So there are some particular social factors which helps the spread of specific linguistic changes. So the first one is post-vocalic R. Post-vocalic are words that are pronounced with R sounds on its ends as it is included in the spelling. As in with the post-vocalic R called rhotic. In many parts of England and Wales, Standard English has lost pronunciation of R following the vowels in words like star and start. Since the loss of post-vocalic R began in 17th century in the southeast of England and it is still in progress. However, in large areas of England, rhotic English accents are regarded as rural and uneducated in large parts of USA. On the other hand, post-vocalic R is alive and well extensively used, such as New York, where the rhoticism is now is well established as speech feature. The next one is the spread of vernacular forms. It is easy to understand that pronunciation which is considered prestigious will be imitated and will be spread through a community. But there are also some examples of vernacular pronunciation which have spread through the speech communities. It is possible for the changes to proceed a variety of starting points in variety of direction. So, the recent fact that the island has been invaded by more recent immigrants, and especially by summer tourists, that is a 1916 linguistic survey by Labo suggests that this attitude will indicate the way local pronouns by a and ow sound in words like and house. The like was pronounced like, will be sounds like layit, and house was pronounced house will be pronounced like house. The sound change, which seems to be unconscious, was a change to be a more conservative pronunciation which used to be associated with the area in the past. The next one is coyness and coynization. When people who speak different dialects come into contact in monolingual communities, a new dialect or variety emerges. It is called coynization, and the result of dialect contact called coiny. Coiny coming from the dialect of the largest group of speakers. There are some linguistic processes associated with coiny. The first one is leveling. That is a process which eliminates marked variants. Leveling results in the coyness adopting fewer forms than the range of forms in the source dialects. For example, if the disappearance of post-vocalic R. If people who speak dialects with post-vocalic R come into contact with people do not, leveling generally leads to the disappearance of vocalic R in the coin. The next one is simplification, where two groups of speakers from different dialects areas come together, the simpler form will usually win out. For example, the distinction between he was swimming and they were swimming made dialect speaker who don't make distinction. The process of simplification suggests the simpler form will survive. Then the newest type of coining is multi-ethnolex. That is the result from mixing of linguistic features among multi-ethnic groups in big cities. In these varieties, the majority language may serve initially a lingua franca, but the new multi-ethnic soon developed very distinctive features as a result of the many different languages and dialect which different speakers bring to its construction. For example, the use of a rather than an before a noun beginning with a vowel, such as a orange and a apple. The another example is quotative form, this is plus speaker, such as this is me, what a stupid idea.
Alright, I'm Tasya Lavinska Agustin. I will continue the presentations about how the changes spread. The first is from group to group. Many linguists have used the metaphor of waves to explain how linguistic changes spread through a community. Any particular change typically spreads simultaneously in different directions, though not necessarily at the same rate in all directions. Social factors such as age, status, gender, and region affect the rates of change and the directions in which the waves roll most swiftly. The wave metaphor is one useful way of visualizing the spread of a change from one group to another, like the example of the picture. In any speech community, different sets of waves intersect. You belong simultaneously to a particular age group, region, and social group. A change may spread along any of these dimensions and into another groups via the middle people who have contacts in more than one group. These people speech seem to act as linguistic stockbrokers of entrepreneurs. And this point is the illustration. This is the time 1, time 2, time 3, and time 4 in the picture in the right. And this is show the waves like spread of linguistic change. And ABCD here represent different age groups, social groups, or regional groups.
Okay, I'm Nadya La Viola. Will continue Tasya's explanation. It is about how to change spread. The second one is from style to style. In the speech of a particular individual, it suggests the change spreads from one style to another. It means from the formal to the casual speech. And for example, the sounds R is the most formal style for the younger people in New York, in the socially statusful group in a community. When a change is prestigious one, it usually starts from the top of the speech community in the most formal style of the highest community and spreads downwards. And the younger people tend to adopt the new forms more quickly than the older one, and they use it extensively. And the last way of how do change spread is from word to word. Sound changes typically spread through different words one by one. It is usually called lexical diffusion. For example, in the Belfast, a vowel changes affected a vowel in word pull before put and put before should. Those three words start with same vowels but ended with identical different vowel. Now we go to how do we study language change. We have two ways. The first one is apparent time studies of language change, and the second one is language change in the real time. The first one is apparent time studies of language change. A steady increase and steady decline in frequency of a form by age group suggests the sociolinguists that change may be in progress in speech community. People normally use vernacular forms while they are young and tend to use standard forms as they get older and respond to the pressure of society's expectation. And it was apparent to Labov that sounds R was a prestigious pronunciation in New York. And the second is language change in a real time. Sometimes it is possible to build on the work of earlier linguists when studying change. And dictionaries with provide the date when was first noted can assist studying change. For example, the vowel beer and bear still distinct for many speakers except from highest social group. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Tasya Lavinska Agustin. I will continue the presentations about the reasons for language change. Why is language change? The first reason is social status and language change. Linguistic change may enter a speech community through any social group, but that different types of change are associated with different groups. Members of the group with most social status, for example, tend to introduce changes into a speech community from neighboring communities which have greater status and prestige in their eyes. And then, for example, lower class speakers are more influential in spreading less conscious linguistic changes. Lower class men in particular often adopt speech forms a nearby local worker to express solidarity rather than status of prestige. And then, meanwhile, the upper working class is how these particular combinations describe, and those groups whose networks have the particular combinations of openness which provide exposure to alternative linguistic forms together with a level of density which gives the forms an opportunity to get established. Now we move to the second reasons, gender and language change. Differences in women's and men's speech are another source of variations which can result in linguistic change. Sometimes women are the innovators leading a linguistic change and sometimes men. Women tend to be associated with changes toward both prestige and vernacular norms, whereas men more often introduce vernacular changes. For example, gender and language differences in women's like we can see in Uceda, a small village in Spain near the provincial capital of Santander, men have been forced to look outside the village to find wives. Why? This is because many of the village women will not marry the local working dairy farmers because they don't want to remain in the farming villages. The prospect of being stuck at home as their mothers were with the cows and the children simply of the standard and isn't very attractive. The woman's speech indicates their social aspirations here. The third reason is interactions and language change. Interaction and contact between people is crucial in providing the channels for linguistic change. As previous examples have implied, in this final section, we identify more explicitly the ways in which interactions or lack of it has affected of the progress of linguistic changes in a number of communities. And linguistic change generally progress most slowly in tightly knit communities which have little contact with the outside world. There are plenty of examples of places where isolation has contributed to linguistic conservation. Scottish Gaelic has survived best in Western Isles of Scotland. The far north and east Cape of New Zealand is where Maori survive best. Little mountain villages in Italy, Switzerland, and Spain are places where all the dialects of Italian, French, and Spanish are preserved. Sardinia is another example of a relatively isolated area which is renowned and its conservative linguistic forms compared to Italian dialects such as Sicilian. And then example, Icelandic has altered relatively little since the 13th century and it has developed very little dialectal variation. By contrast, during the same period, English has changed radically and has been characterized by cross-dialect variation. Okay, that's about our presentations about our topic language change. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.